The James Show Podcast. The James Show Podcast.
Now, stock market didn't do so good today, but it's been flirting around all-time highs here lately, setting a few records here and there over the last week or so. And you'll notice that you got a whole lot more headlines when the market was going down versus it going up. Remember when that was a hot topic of conversation? I got one of my monitors here on MSNBC. They're not talking about the economy. They're not talking about that at all. They're not talking about the stock markets. They're not talking about, because you remember the reports that were coming out. There was the first round of them in the sort of January, February, where the market topped off and started to dip down. And then there was another dip that happened in April when the tariff action, remember Liberation Day? And what were you being told? Donald Trump's ruining the economy. The economy's crashing. We're headed toward a recession. That's it. The economy's going to crash. Things are going to hell in a handbasket. And this isn't a macro story. This affects you. This ruins your retirement savings. You're not going to be able to retire. Are you getting the headlines? Are you getting the retractions now? 6 months later? Oh, we take it back. Sorry to scare the pants out of you back in January and February. Your retirement has more than recovered and grown since we predicted the opposite just 6 months ago. So it kind of bothers me that they get a pass for all their bad predictions. But hey, we've got a good economy. At least I can tell you that. But not only is the economy rocking along, there's a lot of optimism, like a little room left to grow over here. We just had the new trade deal that was announced with the EU this week. That's going to be huge. They're buying $750 billion worth of defense spending from us. Some of that's going to be donated to the cause in Ukraine. So that's fantastic for us. But I think what's even a bigger seesaw is when they also pledged to spend, again, this number got used twice, $750 billion worth of energy from the United States. So I think this is going to be more oil, natural gas, maybe some refined gasoline. But when they buy it from us, that means they're not going to buy it from Russia. And once we're getting along and we have the giant corridor, the giant conduit of military supplies, supply chain, now just in a straight line from the United States to the European Union, that isn't going so well for Russia either. So these are economic wins that are going to have non-economic effects as far as world peace goes. There was a report today where Trump said he talked to Scott Bessent, and Scott Bessent said that the trade talks with China went well today. If we get a new trade deal with China, we can open up some of the world's biggest market, or now second biggest market, to India. That would be huge. Your unemployment rate. It's not at an all-time low, but historically speaking, this is lower than average. This is the happy place. We're going to get a new unemployment number. Usually that comes out on the first Friday of the month. And this Friday, August 1st, is going to be the first Friday of the month. I have seen when it's the first that they'll punt it to the next week if they don't get all the numbers in time. So we might get that number this Friday. I think we're going to get it next Friday. But also we have a couple of other big things that are happening this week that I wanted to get all this on the record. So after it happens, when I say, I told you, I actually told you. So the Federal Reserve is having a meeting today and tomorrow. Tomorrow they're going to announce if they're going to lower the rate. Now, they're not expected to lower the rate after their 2-day meeting. But a FedWatch tool says there's a 97% chance that rates are going to remain the same. If there's a cut, look for the stock market to jump on that. But also, if they don't lower it now, the odds that they're going to lower it in their September meeting or maybe a couple times for the end of the year, that goes up. So expect some positive headwinds from that whenever it happens, if it happens. I don't know. These people expect that it's not going to happen. It's just going to stay the same. But Donald Trump's been hammering this guy, so we'll see if he responds to that. Also, tomorrow, we're expected to get the first number, the print on the second quarter GDP, the gross domestic product for the second 3 months. So April, May, and June, we're supposed to get that number tomorrow. Most people are expecting it to be positive. Atlanta Fed expects it to be positive. I don't care how big it is. The point is, if it is positive, then everyone that was predicting a recession 6 months ago will now have been proven wrong. So let me just start on the good note here, because I got a good soundbite and I got a bad soundbite. I'm going to start with the good one because it makes me very happy to play this. Bill Maher gets a ton of credit on this show because even though I don't agree with him on a lot of political issues, he's not a hack. He's willing to admit when he was wrong. And he's one of the more sensible ones on Team Blue that, man, if y'all would listen to this guy, maybe I wouldn't have so many problems. But here he is on a recent podcast admitting that he was wrong about the Trump tariffs a few months ago.
I will always call it as I see it, no matter what it is, and I don't care who likes it or doesn't. That's my bond with the audience. It's worked for me pretty well. But it is, in a way harder to do. But for just to take an example, tariffs. Now, I remember along with probably most people, were saying at the beginning, by the 4th of July, somebody had to think how the the economy was going to be tanked by then. And I was kind of like, well, that seems right to me, but that didn't happen. Now, it could happen tomorrow. I'm just saying that's reality. So let's work first from the reality of that, not from I just hate Donald Trump.
Yeah. Your first instinct should be, how does this affect me? Well, I mean, I'm pretty self-centered too. Let's ask my next guest, Michelle Schultz from Schultz Trade Law. What do we know about this EU trade deal? How is this going to affect the average person listening, Michelle?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on.
Hey there.
In my opinion, this trade deal is still going to affect the average U.S. person by increasing the cost of the goods they're buying. We have agreed to 15%, which is a lot better than the 30% that the administration had threatened. But 15% doesn't seem to be what the EU really wanted. And it is much higher than we're used to paying on average for products from Europe, which in the past were averaging around 2.5%.
So when you look at what we buy from Europe, it's sort of the opposite of Asia. In Asia, the stuff we get from them is like a T-shirt or a Happy Meal toy or some other thing that's made of plastic that's sold in Dollar General. The things we get from Europe are the big complex machines that make smaller machines, some rare pharmaceutical, an MRI scanning equipment. We get the more complex, technologically advanced stuff from Europe. So therefore, the more expensive stuff comes from Europe.
Yes. And since tariffs are ad valorem, meaning they're based on the value of the merchandise, you're going to see higher percentages on higher valued items coming from Europe, and that will impact many different industries.
So I think this is going to be a big one. Looks like we buy a lot of stuff in the manufacturing industry and pharmaceuticals and sort of high-end stuff like that. So I don't think the EU deal will hurt the most people when they go to the grocery store or buying from the other side of Walmart. But talk about the businesses this will hurt.
It's going to hurt the businesses that make things. So if it's a high-tech end item, this will impact the price of that item. So, for example, steel and aluminum and copper, as far as we know, are all still at 50%. So maybe it looks like, hopefully, items classified as aircraft parts will remain duty-free, I hope. However, it depends on your tariff classification. Anything that's made out of steel, aluminum, or copper is still going to be 50%. So a lot of the things that are subject to high tariffs are used to make other things. We've got that in oil and gas, construction. We've seen it in many different areas. And the U.S. typically has profited from having these high-tech industries and advanced industries rather than just importing, like you said, a T-shirt or something like that.
Right. Well, how does this work in reverse? We're talking with Michelle Schultz from Schultz Trade Law. Does this open up a whole lot of new markets to American products that we previously didn't have access to?
I would say no, honestly. I think, this is kind of, as the president of the European Commission said, 15% is the best we're going to get. But 15% is still very high. So I don't see American products getting cheaper to make. And there are not a lot of American products that our clients are making that are 100% U.S. origin.
Right.
So unless you grew it here or you somehow mined it here, which would take some time, we typically need those cheaper or better inputs from other countries.
Yeah, you know what? I'm really interested to see what happens most specifically in the pharmaceutical realm, because we get so many from just pretty much Germany. You know, that's the big one. And there are what, third, fourth biggest trading partners. It's like Mexico, Canada, China, and then Germany right after that. And a lot of that's because drugs. And then I think about who's listening to WBAP. And you might just want to keep an eye on your drug prices, maybe look for some alternatives or a generic from somewhere else. Or for me, I feel like that's the front leading thing that could affect most people listening is your prescriptions.
I agree. I think drug prices will have to go up 15% as your average, the across the board baseline. That's very, very high. I mean, I've been doing international trade law with importers in the U.S. for over 25 years, and I've been used to dealing in numbers like, oh, that's 5%. Wow, that's a really big hit. So to me, 15 is not a great thing. It's high, and it is going to go down to pharmaceuticals, even medical supplies and medical equipment. So anything made of steel or aluminum, it's going to go up. And I can think of several different products in the medical industry that involve those. So we really are going to see this play out in pharmaceuticals. And I agree. I would start looking now at what you can get cheap.
Yeah, and just see what company it's coming from. Is it coming from Merck? Is it coming from Bayer? You may want to start looking at some alternatives. Michelle Schultz, keep an eye on that and let us know if something pops, and we'll pass it along. We're talking about the economy. It's doing pretty good. Why are you talking about that, James? It's not in the headlines. Well, I'm talking about it because it's not in the headlines. It should be in the headlines. You know, my IRA totally recovered from the little dip that it did in February and the bigger dip that it did in April, and has put more on top of it. Stock market is around record closes. They just closed today, and it's not records all the way around, but still among record highs. And it's just kind of chaps my butt that it gets all kinds of headlines on the way down, but none on the way up. And they're clearly trying to just use reporting on the stock market and the economy as a whole as just a tool to separate Trump from his supporters. Todd Weatherford, you're on WBAP.
Yes.
Go.
Glad to be here. You know, I hear everybody talking about these tariffs and stuff and how bad they're going to be on the U.S., but this is way overdue. Way overdue.
Explain.
And, just want to say one thing about, like, the iron, the steel, and the aluminum. We need to be recycling. We've got plenty of iron and plenty of aluminum right here in our own. We don't need to be buying from other countries. We've got plenty right here. We'll bring our manufacturing back to the United States and make America great again.
Okay, I mean, like, that sounds good, but recycling is actually less efficient than making aluminum from scratch. And recycling still requires, you know, the whole smelting process, which is what the other countries can do cheaper than we can because their labor is dirt cheap. So, I mean, that sounds good, but I'm not with you on that. I'm not a big fan of recycling. Well, I should say this. I'm indifferent to recycling. Recycling, when it happens naturally through the free market, awesome. This whole idea that we need to be recycling glass and paper and aluminum,
No.
It's just brain damage levels of dumb. Because
I don't mean that. I'm talking about our precious resources.
Well, look, it's a little deeper than that. I don't want to be so reductive because, look, we actually do have a shortage of iron on planet Earth. Just like gold, iron, there's a few other things that are only in Earth's crust because it was part of meteors that hit us. And so we're running out of the good iron ore, and we're, as far as what we found on Earth, we're down to sort of the second grade iron ore. We still have plenty to get by on for now, but at some point, that's going to come to a head. Aluminum, however, is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust. And so you can pretty much just dig up half the dirt in North America and mine it for aluminum or smelt it for aluminum. So we're never running out of aluminum. That's the dumbest thing we could recycle, except for maybe paper, because you can always grow more trees. That's the one thing we'll never run out of is paper, because you can always just make more. And then glass is like a little bit of soda and sand. So are we running out of sand on Earth anytime soon here?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That'd be a big problem, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so that's why I'm not a big fan of recycling, as something that should be pushed, especially by government. But there's real recycling that happens. Scrap yards are a worthy recycling endeavor. How do I know? Because it doesn't have to be forced by government. You don't have to subsidize it, and you don't have to take money from me and give it to someone to make them recycle. So just, I don't know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The way to get to the bottom of these.
Misunderstanding me. I do.
Need
for the government to push it. It just needs to be maybe put out there so the free market can take off. And when the iron prices when steel prices go up, the recycle prices go up at the recycle yards. So people are loading up their trailers and they're taking their old tractors and stuff in and stuff. Hey, they're cleaning up their yards. They're cleaning up America, right?
Yeah, well, look, that's the one thing I like about recycling. If you leave it to the private sector, is it serves a function if and only if it's actually needed. And so, I also hear from people who make your argument that we need to keep our steel and aluminum capacity up to snuff for national security reasons. We've always got to be able to make tanks, or we've always got to be able to, have enough oil to run the tanks or the boats and stuff. And I kind of feel that too. But there's some countries like France just has basically no oil. Well, are they surviving just fine? Do they have like national security issues? Are they being overrun by their neighbors because they don't have their own critical supply of a resource that they can't live without? No, they seem to be doing just fine. Japan's another one of those countries. It doesn't have any oil. So when people say, well, you've got to have this one specific commodity for national security's sake. No, there's a lot of countries that are surviving just fine, and they have zero of a very crucial commodity. So I don't know. I hate to make it more complex than it is, but I also hate for people to make it more reductive than it is. But it's a good chat to have.
I would agree with that.
All right.
To an extent.
All right. Well, good chat here, Todd. And to set up today's edition of What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time, we have to review a little bit of what's going on in the economy, because the economy's been rocking along now. There was some hiccups at the beginning of the year, and when the tariff talk started to happen on Liberation Day, April 2nd. But since then, the markets have recovered everything they've lost. They've started making new highs. GDP growth is expected to be well into positive territory, and I think that number comes out tomorrow, which means we're not going to have been in a recession, even though there was a slight negative number for the first quarter GDP. We had a new trade deal with the EU and some other nations. Trade talks with China went well, as reported today. The unemployment rate is at a historic low, not an all-time low, but still, that's a happy number. 4.2, 4.3% is kind of a good place for it to be. We're going to get a new number next Friday on that. We may get a lower interest rate from the Federal Reserve tomorrow. Keep an eye out for that. It's expected to hold steady, but that's also a good sign. If he's holding steady, then he's not worried about it. And so in the face of Bill Maher actually coming clean and doing the adult, mature thing and admitting he was wrong, now we get to see who else is going to follow suit. Bill Maher gets a ton of credit for that. If you want to go back and you want to see what Kevin Hassett was saying, he's one of the economic advisors on the Trump team. And when the first quarter GDP number came out slightly negative, the first question, whoa, are we in a recession? Is there going to be a recession this year? And here he is, April 14th.
Kevin, real quick, are you expecting a recession this year?
100% not. 100% not. If you look at the jobs numbers, they're very, very strong. When I talk anecdotally to CEOs, I say things like, well, geez, is the uncertainty over tariffs looking like it's going to be a big drag? And they're saying things like, no, in terms of production, we're getting as much onshore as we can. And in terms of sales of foreign goods, people are buying as many as they can because they're worried about future tariffs. So everything's through the roof, anecdotally, with the CEOs I've been talking to. And the hard data on jobs have been really, really good.
Okay, so it looks like tomorrow he's going to be proven right if there's a positive GDP number from the Fed on the second quarter. But if you want to go back, let's see what Jasmine was saying.
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea. Bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, Governor High Wheels, and he is a hot-ass mess, honey. Queen of the liberal tea.
Jasmine Crockett, February 19th of this year, predicting a recession.
We are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you if you are unable to find a job, because I am telling people we are headed towards a recession because the United States government is the 15th largest employer in the world. And so firing those that work for the federal government isn't going to necessarily create new jobs in private industry. In fact, Southwest Airlines, based in my district, just announced for the very first time in its entire existence that they are doing a layoff of approximately 15% of their workforce. If you pay attention, the signs are there. And I'm not telling you to be an alarmist. I'm telling you because I want to be honest with the American people. And my background, believe it or not, I was a business major, and none of this looks good for us right now.
There you go. It should be a big number that's going to be a big headline tomorrow, but it's not going to be because it's going to be too positive. It just doesn't fit the narrative. And Jasmine Crockett's also making some news today. The Atlantic dropped a profile on Jasmine Crockett, the congressional representative for the district that I'm sitting in right now. Now, the Atlantic, it's not a conservative, Team Red, libertarian, pro-America outlet. It's dedicated Team Blue. And you would think a profile from a Team Blue outlet on a Team Blue member would necessarily be glowing. She wouldn't have anything to worry about. But something happened. The Atlantic explains in their piece today that they were going through the regular process that happens when you profile someone. You go and you sit them down for an interview and you record it and you take notes and you get their story and you ask them some questions about whatever the topics of the day are. And then in the profile, you go talk to some of the people that she mentioned. If she mentions a law professor, you go try and run it by them and get a comment from them too. If she mentions a political opponent, you give them a chance to comment. And so many times when you hear or read an article, so-and-so declined to request to comment, you know, that's what that's from. They're just letting you know they at least gave them a chance to say something or to add something or to confirm something or to counter something, to dispel things that they didn't find factual or correct. Well, Jasmine Crockett's team was getting some calls from some of their, underlings in the House of Representatives. A lot of them know each other. And if you're an underling, when you go to these parties where congressmen are hanging out, the congressmen meet the congressmen, the underlings meet the underlings. And the underlings were talking, and Jasmine found out that some of these people who were sharing the House Oversight Committee with her, that were working on her with other projects, that were somehow acquainted with her in the House of Representatives or in law school or some of these other stories that came up. The Atlantic was going and interviewing them and asking them about what Jasmine Crockett said. So Jasmine Crockett didn't like that. And here's what they had to stick toward the end of the profile on Jasmine Crockett in the Atlantic today. This is one of the last paragraphs. It says, Crockett said that people are free to disagree with her communication style, but that she was elected to speak up for the people that I represent. As for her colleagues, 4 days before this story was published, Crockett called me to express frustration that I had reached out to so many House members without telling her first. She told me, and this in quotes, shutting down the profile and revoking all permissions. For those of you not familiar with media, that's not how that works. You don't get to say, I changed my mind. You're not going to get to write this profile about me. I'll write whatever profile I want, lady. You have no mechanism of control over what I'm about to publish, as long as what I publish is true or believed to be true or a reasonable person would think it's true. So no, who cares if you revoke all permissions? It's too late. And you don't have the power to shut down the profile. So that's adorable if she thinks that's how it works. However, why would she think that's how it works? Because the Atlantic is a dedicated Team Blue media outlet. And you can't blame her. I don't blame her for 1 second for thinking that's how it works, because it's been the mission of most media outlets to do anything and everything it takes to help Team Blue beat Team Red. And they will bend over backwards and ignore huge stories if it helps Team Blue. They will magnify ant-sized stories if it helps Team Blue. They will change the narrative. They will modify facts. They will ignore very important traits in one story while highlighting them in other stories, all to serve the mission of Team Blue. So you can't really falter for thinking that they would say, oh, well, if this isn't going to be good for the cause, then I guess we've got to just shut this profile down. All of our permissions have been revoked. What do you want us to do? No, sorry. Doesn't work like that. I know you wish it did, but it doesn't. All right, coming up to the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory, the Lost 80s Live Tour is coming. They're going to be here August 17th, featuring a flock of seagulls, General Public, Big Country, The Vapors, and more. Get tickets, information, a full lineup at livenation.com. Or if you want to try and win a pair of tickets from us here at WBAP, you can text the word LOST, like for the Lost 80s Live Tour. Text the word LOST, LOST, to the same phone number you can call in with, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Try and win a pair from us.
The James Show Podcast.